People think the worst betrayal comes from strangers. But mine came from the child I raised, and I figured it out while standing outside my own home. I was still in my work uniform when I saw my bags on the porch, the locks changed, and my daughter-in-law smiling inside my house. And that's when the truth finally hit me. I was restocking the antibiotic shelf when my phone buzzed. "Mom, don't come home." That was it. No explanation. No call. Just 7 words from my son, Derek, sent like he was warning me about bad weather. My hands went cold. I thought maybe there'd been a break-in, a gas leak, something fixable. But the way he wrote it, so flat, so final, made my stomach turn in a way I couldn't explain. I clocked out early, told my manager it was an emergency. She didn't ask questions. The whole drive back to the house, I kept checking my phone. Nothing. No follow-up. No, we'll explain later. Just silence. When I turned onto my street, I saw them. My suitcases. Both of them. Sitting on the curb like trash day. I pulled into the driveway and got out slowly, my legs shaking. The front door looked different. New hardware. Shiny brass deadbolt I'd never seen before. I tried my key. It didn't fit. That's when I noticed the Ring camera. The one I'd installed 2 years ago after the neighborhood had that string of package thefts. It was still there, mounted by the door, but someone had turned it, facing the wall, like they didn't want it to see. Margaret. I jumped. It was Carol from next door, standing at the property line with her arms crossed. She looked uncomfortable, guilty, almost. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know if I should call you or what happened." My voice cracked. She glanced at the house, then back at me. "There was a man here this morning. Early. He had a briefcase. Looked official. Your daughter-in-law let him in?" My heart dropped. What kind of man? I don't know for sure, but I saw a notary seal on his folder when he walked past my driveway. A notary. I moved toward the front window, the one that looks into the living room. The blinds were half open, and there she was. Allison, my daughter-in-law, sitting on my couch with my old documents safe open on the coffee table. The metal lockbox I'd kept in the hall closet for 30 years. The one with my deed, my insurance papers, my late husband's will. She was holding something up to the light, smiling, talking on the phone. I felt like I'd been punched. Carol touched my arm. "Margaret, I found this in your mailbox this morning." It looked important, so I held on to it in case she handed me a torn envelope. Inside was a receipt. Partial, smudged blue ink. Notarization service, property transfer, secondary signature pending. The words blurred. I read them twice. 3 times. "Mom." I spun around. Derek was standing in the driveway. Not in the doorway. Not coming toward me. Just standing there, 10 feet away, like I was a stranger. "You shouldn't have come back," he said quietly. "What are you talking about?" I could barely breathe. "This is my house, Derek. I've lived here for 40 years. It's complicated." He wouldn't look at me. His hands were in his pockets. His jaw was tight, then uncomplicated. "We're just ... trying to avoid confusion. You've been forgetting things. Mom, bills, appointments. We thought it'd be easier if you locked me out of my own home." He flinched. For just a second, I saw something in his face. Not love, not concern, fear. He was afraid of me, or afraid of what I might do. What I might figure out. "This is temporary," he said, his voice flat. "Just until we get everything sorted." "Sorted?" I held up the receipt. "What's this?" His eyes flicked to the paper, then to Carol, then back to me. "I don't know what that is." Liar? I could feel my pulse in my throat. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the envelope. But I didn't. I held on. Because I knew right then, standing in my own driveway with my suitcases on the curb and my son lying to my face, that this wasn't protection. This was theft. And the message wasn't a warning. It was a confession. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed at Carol's. She made up the guest room and didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Allison's smile. That smug, satisfied look while she held my papers up to the light. By 7 a.m., I was dressed and out the door. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:45, waiting in my car in the parking lot. My hands hadn't stopped shaking since yesterday. This story is inspired by real-life submissions. Names and details have been changed. When the doors unlocked, I walked straight to the counter. Asked for someone who could check my account, my mortgage, anything tied to my house. They sent me to a manager. Older guy, kind eyes. The type who probably thought he was being helpful when he said, "Mrs. Hole, is everything all right? You seem a little rattled?" Rattled? Like I'd lost my reading glasses. "I need to know if there's been any activity on my property," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Any requests? Filings? Anything?" He typed for a moment, frowning at his screen. Then he looked up. "There is a pending inquiry," he said slowly, "linked to your home address. It came through yesterday morning." My chest tightened. "What kind of inquiry?" "I'm not entirely sure. It's flagged as under review. But these things happen, Mrs. Hale. Sometimes paperwork gets submitted and people forget they authorized it. Happens all the time with folks your age." Folks your age. I wanted to scream. Instead, I leaned forward. "I didn't authorize anything." He smiled. "Patronizing? Patient. Well, let's not jump to conclusions. It could be a miscommunication. Maybe your son was helping you out and my son locked me out of my house yesterday." The smile faded. Before he could respond, a younger woman appeared at his shoulder. A teller I'd seen before. Her name tag said Brianna. "Excuse me," she said quietly, looking at the screen. "That inquiry, ... is it linked to Prescott Notary Services?" The manager nodded. Brianna's face changed. "We had another case like this last month. A woman came in saying someone tried to transfer her deed using a power of attorney she never signed. The notary seal came from that same office." My stomach dropped. "What happened to her?" I asked. Brianna hesitated, looked at the manager. He gave a small nod. "The transfer was stopped," she said. "The signature didn't match the one on file, but it was close. Someone had practiced." I thought about Allison in my living room, my lockbox open, my deed in her hands. How long had she been practicing my signature? The manager cleared his throat. "Mrs. Holly, I think we should pull up your full account history. Just to be safe." He printed everything. Statements, mortgage records, property alerts. I watched the pages pile up, each one a little piece of proof that this wasn't in my head. When I left, I had a folder thick enough to hurt when I held it, and a phone call I didn't want to make. Derek called first. "Mom, where are you?" "At the bank." Silence. Then, quieter. "Why?" "Because someone tried to steal my house, Derek, and I'm pretty sure you know who." "Jesus." "Mom, you're being paranoid. Nobody's stealing anything. We're trying to help you." "By locking me out?" "That was temporary. We were just the bank's going to tell you everything's fine. You probably misunderstood something. You've been forgetting stuff lately. It's normal." Normal. There it was again. That word they kept using. Like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with sharp objects. "I'm not forgetting anything," I said, my voice hard. "And I'm getting a lawyer." He went quiet. "Then, don't do that." "Why not?" "Because you're going to make this worse. For everyone. Just ... Let us handle it, okay? We know what we're doing." "So do I." I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was anger. The kind that sits low in your chest and doesn't let go. I looked down at the folder in my lap. At Brianna's handwritten note clipped to the top. "If you need a lawyer, ask for someone who handles elder law. Don't let them brush you off." She'd underlined, "don't," twice. I pulled out my phone and searched for attorneys near me. Found one with decent reviews, called and got an appointment for that afternoon. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in 24 hours. Not hope, not yet, but direction. And the question that wouldn't leave me alone: if the signature didn't match, whose did they use? The attorney's office was smaller than I expected. One of those converted houses on the edge of downtown, with a wooden sign out front and a waiting room that smelled like old coffee. The receptionist barely looked up when I walked in. "Margaret Holly," I said. "I have a 2 o'clock. She nodded toward a row of chairs. "He's running behind. Family dispute stuff always takes longer." Family dispute? Like I'd ask my son to mow the lawn, and he forgot. I sat down and waited. 15 minutes. Then 30. I watched the clock on the wall tick forward while my stomach twisted tighter and tighter. Finally, the door opened. Mrs. Holey. The attorney was younger than I expected. Maybe 40, tired eyes, rumpled suit. He shook my hand and gestured me into his office. "So," he said, sitting down behind a desk piled with folders, "what brings you in?" I handed him the bank paperwork, the notary receipt, told him about the lockbox, the changed locks, the message from Derek. He listened, nodded, scribbled a few notes. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Mrs. Holly, I'm going to be honest with you. These family situations, they're complicated. A lot of times, it's just miscommunication. Adult children trying to help, parents feeling like they're losing control. It can get messy. Messy. This isn't miscommunication," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Someone tried to transfer my property without my permission." He held up a hand. "I hear you. But here's the thing. If your son has power of attorney, or if there's any documentation suggesting you gave verbal consent, this gets a lot harder to fight." "I didn't give consent, verbal or otherwise." "Okay." He picked up the notary receipt, squinting at it. "This is interesting. Interesting how..." He tapped the seal at the bottom. "I've seen this notary before. Prescott Services. They've been flagged a few times for, let's call it sloppy paperwork." Sloppy? Documents that don't quite add up. Signatures that look rushed. Nothing criminal or nothing proven, but enough to raise questions. I felt a flicker of something. Not hope, but validation. "So what does that mean for me?" He set the paper down. "It means we can contest this, but we need to move fast. If they've already filed something with the county, we're playing catch up. What do I need to do? First, we verify what's actually been submitted. I'll send a records request to the county office today. Second, you're going to need to prove ownership, DAD, mortgage history, tax records. You have those. Most of them. Some are still in the house." His face darkened. "The house you can't access, right?" He leaned forward. "Mrs. Holly, here's what worries me. If your son is willing to change the locks and keep you out, he might argue that you're not capable of managing the property, that you're confused." There was that word again. "I'm not confused," I said, my voice steady. "I'm 64 years old. I work full-time. I pay my bills. I'm not senile." "I believe you," he said. And for the first time, I thought he might actually mean it. But in cases like this, perception matters. If they've documented anything, doctor's notes, missed appointments, anything that makes you look unreliable, they can use it. My throat tightened. "So what do I do?" "You stay sharp. Keep records of everything. Every text, every call, every conversation. And you don't sign anything they give you. Not even if they say it's temporary." I nodded. My hands were clenched so tight my nails were digging into my palms. He scribbled something on a notepad and tore off the page. "This is my direct number. If anything escalates, if they try to move you somewhere, or pressure you into signing something, you call me immediately." I took the paper, folded it carefully, and put it in my purse. "How long will it take?" I asked. "To find out what they filed. A few days, Maybe a week. A week. I thought about Allison sitting in my living room, going through my things, practicing my signature. What if they do something else while we wait? He didn't answer right away, and that told me everything. Just be careful, he finally said, and don't go back to the house alone. I left his office with my folder, my notepad, and a sick feeling in my stomach. On the way to the car, my phone buzzed. It was Allison. Margaret, you really need to stop stressing yourself out over paperwork you don't understand. You're just confusing yourself. Let us handle things. Okay. Rest. Rest. Like I was a dog they'd put in a kennel. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I screenshotted it and saved it to a folder I titled Evidence. Because I wasn't resting. I was building a case. And the question that burned in my mind as I drove away wasn't if they'd filed something. It was what else had they already done that I didn't know about yet. 3 days later, I went back to the house. Not alone. The attorney said not to go alone. So I called the non-emergency police line and explained the situation. They sent an officer. A young guy, maybe 30, with a notebook and a bored expression. You just need to get some belongings, he asked as we pulled up. Medication? Clothes? Documents, if I can find them? He nodded. Knocked on the door. Allison answered. She looked perfect. Hair done. Makeup fresh. Smiling like she was greeting guests for brunch. Oh, Margaret, she said, her voice dripping with concern. You didn't have to bring the police. We would have let you in. I tried my key, I said flatly. It didn't work. Well, yes, we had to change the locks for security reasons. But you could have just called. The officer shifted beside me. Ma'am, Mrs. Holly has a right to access her property. This is her house. Allison's smile tightened. Actually, officer, that's ... complicated. Margaret's been having some difficulties lately. Memory issues. We're in the process of making sure everything's properly organized so she doesn't get confused. I felt my face go hot. I'm not confused, I said. Of course you're not, sweetie. She touched my arm. I pulled away. The officer looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Is there a property deed or title we can verify? Everything's being handled by our attorney, Allison said smoothly. But yes, Margaret can come in. I just want to make sure she's okay. She gets overwhelmed easily. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked past her into my own house. It looked different. Cleaner. Like someone had been erasing me. The photos on the mantel were gone. My reading chair had been moved. The mail basket I kept by the door was empty. Where are my things? I asked. We packed some stuff up, Allison said. Just to make room. It's all safe. Safe. I walked down the hall to my bedroom. The door was open. My closet had been cleared out. Half my clothes were gone. The dresser drawers were reorganized. And on the nightstand, where I'd always kept my medication organizer, there was nothing. I need my prescriptions, I said. Allison appeared in the doorway. Oh, we moved those to the kitchen. Easier to keep track of. She led me to the kitchen. Opened a cabinet above the sink. My pill bottles were there, but they'd been transferred into a new organizer. One of those locked ones. With a timer. See? Allison said brightly. This way you won't accidentally take too much. It's safer. The officer was standing in the doorway, watching. Mrs. Holly? He said quietly. Do you want to take those with you? Yes. Allison's smile faltered. Actually, her doctor recommended we monitor her dosages. She's had some confusion about. I haven't had any confusion, I interrupted. And I'm taking my medication. I reached for the organizer. Allison's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm. Margaret, please. You're getting upset. This isn't good for you. The officer stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to let her take her belongings. Allison released my wrist. Smiled again. Of course. I'm just worried about her. I grabbed the organizer and my pill bottles. Shoved them into my purse. Then I noticed something on the counter. A folder. Blue, labeled Medicare Margaret Hole. I picked it up. Inside were my insurance cards, my social security information, my primary care physician's contact details, all separated, organized, ready to be used. "Why do you have this?" I asked. Allison glanced at the officer, then back at me. "We're making sure everything's in order, in case you need help with appointments, or these are mine." "Of course they are, sweetie. We're just keeping them safe. If this is hitting close to home, stay with me. And if you'd like more stories like this, subscribing really helps." I took the folder, held it against my chest like it might disappear. Derek appeared then, coming down the stairs. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered. "Mom," he said, not warmly, not coldly, just ... "Nothing. I'm getting my things," I said. "Okay, that was it? Just okay?" I looked at him, really looked, and I saw it again. That fear, that desperate need for this to be over, but not because he cared, because he wanted me gone. "Derek, what's happening here?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What are you doing?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "We're trying to help you. Mom, you're making this harder than it needs to be. By locking me out, by taking my medication, by acting like you're not well," he said quietly. "You just don't see it." The room went silent. The officer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hawley, do you have everything you need?" I didn't, but I couldn't stay there another second. "Yes." As we walked toward the door, I heard it. A camera click. I turned, saw my neighbor across the street, Linda, the one who always complained about my hedges, standing on her porch with her phone out, recording. She saw me looking, didn't stop. When I got to the car, another neighbor was there. Ellen. She'd lived 2 doors down for 15 years. "Margaret," she said softly, "I saw what happened yesterday, with the locks. If you need someone to vouch for you, I will." I almost cried. "Thank you," I whispered. She handed me a small piece of paper. Her number. "Call me if you need anything. I mean it." I drove away with my medication, my Medicare folder, and one witness. And the question that wouldn't leave me alone, if they were so sure I was confused, why did they look so scared when I started asking questions? The attorney called the next morning. "I got the records back from the county," he said. "No greeting. Just business." I sat down. My hands were already shaking. "And there's a filing. Incomplete. It was submitted 4 days ago, the same day you got locked out. Someone tried to register a property transfer using what they claimed was a valid power of attorney." My stomach dropped. "Claimed? It was flagged. The clerk noticed the signature on the power of attorney didn't match the one on your original deed, so they put a hold on it. Nothing's been processed yet." I closed my eyes, breathed. "But here's the thing, Mrs. Hole," he continued. "This wasn't amateur hour. Whoever did this knew the process. They had notarized documents. They had your social security number. They had copies of your deed. This was planned." "How long?" I asked. "How long were they planning this?" "I don't know, but I'd guess weeks, maybe months." Months. I thought about all the times Allison had offered to help with paperwork, all the times she'd asked where I kept important documents, all the times I'd trusted her because she was family. "What do I do now?" I asked. "We go to the county office, in person. You bring your ID, your original deed if you have it, and anything else that proves ownership. We file a formal dispute and get a protection order on the property. No one touches it without a court order. When? Today? If you can?" I could. 2 hours later, I was standing in the county records office with my folder of documents and a sick feeling in my stomach. The woman behind the desk was probably in her 50s. Gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. She looked like she'd been doing this job for 30 years and had seen everything. "Name?" she asked without looking up. "Margaret Hawley." She typed, frowned, looked up. "Oh," she said. You're the Oak Street property. My chest tightened. Yes. She turned her monitor so I could see. There, on the screen, was my address. And next to it, a red flag. Filing incomplete signature discrepancy pending review. I've been doing this job for 26 years, the woman said, her voice softer now. And I've seen this exact scenario at least a dozen times. Adult children assume their aging parents won't check public records. They think once someone hits 60, they stop paying attention. I'm paying attention, I said. She smiled. Just a little. I can see that. She pulled up more files, showed me the submitted documents, the forged power of attorney, the property transfer request, all of it. And there, at the bottom of the power of attorney, was a signature. It looked like mine. Almost. But the capital M was wrong. I always loop it twice. This one only looped once. Do you see that? The clerk asked, pointing. I nodded. That's what saved you, she said. If they'd been more careful, this might have gone through before anyone noticed. I felt cold. What happens now? I'm going to pull the original filing and make certified copies for you. Then we'll add a notation to your property record that flags any future attempts. If anyone tries to submit anything related to this address, we'll contact you directly. Can they try again? She hesitated. Technically, yes, but it'll be harder. And if they do, we'll have a pattern. That's when law enforcement gets involved. Law enforcement. The words hung in the air. Mrs. Hawley, she said gently, this isn't just a family disagreement. This is elder financial abuse. If you want to press charges, you can. I stared at the screen, at my address, at the forged signature. I don't know, I whispered. You don't have to decide today, but keep copies of everything. Document every interaction. And don't let them pressure you into dropping this. She printed the documents, stamped them, handed them to me in a thick manila envelope. You did the right thing coming here, she said. A lot of people don't. I left the office with proof. Real, certified, stamped proof. But my phone was already buzzing. Derek? I didn't answer. Then Allison. I didn't answer. Then Derek again. I stared at the screen, watched it ring and ring. Finally, I picked up. Mom, what did you do? His voice was shaking, angry, scared. I went to the county office. Silence. You had no right, he said finally. No right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Derek, it's my house. My name. My life. You're making this so much worse. Do you understand that? You're involving people who don't know the full story? Then tell me the full story. He didn't. Mom, please. Just ... Stop. Let us handle this. We know what's best. For who? I asked. For me? Or for you? He hung up. I stood there in the parking lot, holding the envelope, feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Not victory, but clarity. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to erase me. And the question burning in my mind now wasn't whether they'd done something wrong. It was how far they'd go to cover it up. I stayed at Carol's for another week. She didn't ask questions, just made coffee in the mornings and left me alone when I needed space. I spent most of my time organizing documents, making copies, writing down every conversation I could remember. Then Derek called. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to hear what he had to say. Mom, his voice was different, softer, almost pleading. We need to talk. I'm listening. I think maybe you should see someone. A doctor, just to make sure you're okay. My blood went cold. I saw my doctor 3 months ago. I'm fine. I mean someone who specializes in memory issues, cognitive stuff. Allison found a clinic that does evaluations. They're really good. They can just check and make sure everything's working right. Derek, there's nothing wrong with my memory. I know you think that. But sometimes people don't realize when things are slipping. It's not your fault. It's just age. There it was again. Age. What clinic? I asked slowly. He gave me the name. I wrote it down. After we hung up, I called Ellen, the neighbor who'd offered to help. Do you know anything about Riverside Cognitive Center? I asked. She was quiet for a moment. That's the place on Hampton Road, right? I think so. Margaret, my sister-in-law went through something similar last year. Her son tried to get her evaluated there. The doctor wrote a report saying she couldn't manage her finances anymore. She lost access to her accounts. They put her under a guardianship. My hands went numb. Was she actually confused? I asked. No. She was sharp as a tack. But the evaluation was, let's just say it was designed to find problems. Once you're in that system, it's almost impossible to get out. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat there, staring at the wall, trying to process what Derek had just tried to do. If I went to that evaluation, they'd find something, anything, a normal memory lapse, a moment of hesitation. It wouldn't matter. They'd use it to take everything. My house, my money, my autonomy. I opened my phone, scrolled back through old messages, old voicemails, and then I found it. A voicemail from 2 months ago. Derek's voice. Casual, unguarded. Hey Mom, it's me. Listen, Allison and I were talking, and we think it's time to start getting your affairs in order. You know, just in case. We're going to start looking into some options. Don't worry about it. We'll handle everything. We'll handle everything. I played it again and again. That wasn't concern. That was planning. I saved the voicemail, backed it up to my email, sent a copy to the attorney. Then I called him. They're trying to get me evaluated, I said as soon as he picked up. For what? Cognitive decline? Memory issues? They want me to go to a clinic that apparently specializes in finding problems. He swore under his breath. Don't go. I wasn't planning on it. Good, because here's what's happening. They're building a case for guardianship. If they can get a doctor to say you're incompetent, they can petition the court to take control of your finances, your property, everything. Can they do that? If they have the right documentation? Yes. And once it's in place, it's incredibly hard to reverse. I felt sick. But here's the thing, he continued. You're one step ahead. You've documented everything. You have the county records. You have witnesses. And now you have that voicemail. Is it enough? It's a start. But Mrs. Hawley, I need you to understand something. This is going to get worse before it gets better. They're going to push harder. They're going to make you look unstable. They're going to tell people you're paranoid. I know. Can you handle that? I thought about the locked door, the forged signature, the pill organizer, the way Derek looked at me like I was a stranger. I don't have a choice, I said. Good, because we're going on the offensive. I'm filing a protective order today. Nothing happens to your property without your explicit written consent. And if they keep pushing this evaluation angle, we'll file a harassment complaint. Will that work? It'll slow them down. And it'll put them on notice that you're not backing down. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not quite hope, but defiance. I looked down at my phone, at the voicemail I'd saved. 2 months ago, Derek had said, we'll handle everything. He just didn't expect me to start handling it first. That night, Allison sent a text. Margaret, I don't understand why you're being so difficult. We're trying to help you. You're only making things harder for everyone. Please stop involving lawyers and strangers. This is a family matter. I read it twice. Then I screenshotted it, added it to my evidence folder, and I wrote back, if this is a family matter, why did you forge my signature? She didn't respond. But 30 minutes later, Derek called. I didn't answer. I knew what he'd say, that I was confused, that I was making things up, that I needed help, but I wasn't confused. I was awake, and the question keeping me up at night wasn't whether they'd keep trying. It was what they'd already set in motion that I hadn't discovered yet. The attorney called me into his office 2 days later. "We need to talk about that voicemail," he said, gesturing to a chair. I sat down. My stomach was already tight. "Is it enough?" I asked. "It's more than enough. It shows premeditation. It shows they were planning this before they ever locked you out. Before they forged anything." He leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his desk. "But here's what I need you to understand. Judges are lenient with adult children. They want to believe people are acting in good faith, even when the evidence says otherwise." My chest tightened. "So what does that mean?" "It means we can't just present this and expect them to fold. We need to show a pattern, and we need to show intent. I have the forged signature, the voicemail, the texts from Allison. I know. But in family court, that's often not enough. They'll say it was a misunderstanding. They'll say they were trying to help. They'll make you look difficult. Then what do?" He slid a piece of paper across the desk. "The county office responded to my records request this morning. They found something." I picked up the paper. It was an email chain from Allison to the notary office, dated 3 weeks before I was locked out. "We need to expedite the property transfer. The owner is elderly and becoming difficult to work with. We'd like to avoid confusion by handling this quickly." The words blurred. I read them again. "Elderly and difficult. She sent this." I whispered. "She did. And the notary flagged it internally because it violated protocol. You're supposed to be present for property transfers, but they didn't report it. They just noted it." "Why didn't they stop it?" "Because on paper, everything looked legitimate. They had a power of attorney. They had your social security number. They had copies of your deed. The only thing that stopped them was the signature mismatch at the county office." I looked up at him. "So if I'd signed my name a little differently 30 years ago, they would have gotten away with it?" "Yes." I felt cold, hollow. "But here's the good news," he continued. "This email changes everything. It's not just a forged signature anymore. It's documented intent to bypass your consent. That's fraud. What happens now? We file a formal complaint with the county. We send copies of everything to the district attorney's office, and we request a protective order that blocks any future attempts to alter your property records. Will it work?" He didn't answer right away, and that scared me. "It should," he finally said. "But Mrs. Helly, I need to be honest with you. Your son and daughter-in-law are going to fight this. They're going to say you're misunderstanding everything. They're going to bring up your age. They're going to make it seem like you're the problem. I know. Can you handle that?" I thought about the locked door, the pill organizer, the way Derek had looked at me like I was already gone. "I have to," I said. He nodded. "Okay. Then we move forward. I'll file the paperwork today. You should expect official notifications to go out by the end of the week." "What kind of notifications?" "Cease and desist, legal hold on the property, and a formal inquiry into elder financial abuse." Elder financial abuse. The words sat heavy in the air. "Will they know it came from me?" I asked. "Yes, and they won't be happy about it." I left his office with a folder full of documents and a weight in my chest that wouldn't lift. By the time I got back to Carol's, my phone was already ringing. "Derek." I stared at it. Let it ring. Then Allison. Then Derek again. I turned the phone off. 2 hours later, there was a knock at Carol's door. It was Derek. Carol opened it, looked back at me. I nodded. She let him in. He looked terrible, pale, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Mom," he said, "please, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. You're going to ruin everything. Do you understand that? You're making this into something it's not." "What is it then?" I asked, my voice steady. "What am I making it into?" "A legal nightmare. You're involving lawyers, the county. You're acting like we tried to steal from you. You did." We were trying to help you. By forging my signature. By locking me out. By trying to get me declared incompetent. His face went red. Who told you that? It doesn't matter. He ran a hand through his hair. Paced the room. You don't understand how complicated this is. The house is falling apart. The taxes are overdue. You weren't handling it. We had to step in. The taxes aren't overdue, I said quietly. I paid them in January. I have the receipt. He froze. And the house isn't falling apart. I had the roof inspected last year. Everything's fine. He stared at me. And for the first time, I saw something crack. Fear. Real, raw fear. Derek, I said slowly. Why did you need my house? He didn't answer. Are you in debt? His jaw tightened. How much? It's not tits complicated. How much? He looked away. Enough. The room went silent. And you thought if you took my house, you could sell it. Pay off whatever you owe. And I'd never notice. That's exactly what you thought. He sank into a chair, put his head in his hands. I didn't want it to be like this, he whispered. I just ... I didn't know what else to do. I looked at him. My son, the boy I'd raised, the man I didn't recognize anymore. You could have asked me, I said. Would you have said yes? No, but you could have asked. He looked up at me, eyes red. What happens now? Now, you leave, and you wait for the county to send you their formal notice. Mom, leave. Derek. He stood, walked to the door, stopped. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't respond. He left. And I sat there, staring at the folder of documents on the table, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not victory, not relief, just the quiet, cold certainty that justice didn't care about apologies. It cared about proof, and I had plenty. The certified letters arrived on a Tuesday. I knew because the attorney called me that morning. They went out yesterday, he said. Your son and daughter-in-law should have them by now, along with the county's formal hold on the property. What does that mean exactly? It means no one can touch that house without a court order. No transfers, no sales, no refinancing, nothing. It's frozen until this gets resolved. I exhaled. Okay. And Mrs. Hawley? The district attorney's office opened a preliminary inquiry based on the email from Allison and the forged documents. It's not a full investigation yet, but it's on their radar. My hands went numb. What happens if it becomes a full investigation? Then we're talking about criminal charges, fraud, attempted theft, elder abuse. The words hung in the air. I know this is hard, he said gently, but you did the right thing. I wasn't sure I believed him, but I said thank you anyway. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Allison, I answered. Put it on speaker. What the hell did you do? Her voice was shaking. Not with fear, with rage. I protected myself. You've got us served with legal papers. Do you have any idea what you've done? You're making us look like criminals. You forged my signature, Allison. You tried to steal my house. We were helping you. You're too old to manage everything on your own. Too old. I closed my eyes. Breathed. If you were helping me, why didn't you ask permission? Because you would have said no. You're stubborn and you don't see how bad things have gotten. What things, Allison? What exactly has gotten bad? She didn't answer. I could hear her breathing. Sharp, angry. You've ruined everything, she finally said. You've embarrassed us. You've made Derek look terrible. All because you couldn't just let us handle it. Handle what? The house. The money. Everything. It's not your money, Allison. It's mine. Not for long. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone, my heart pounding. Not for long. What did that mean? I called the attorney. Left a voicemail. Then I called Ellen. Can you come over? I asked. I need someone here. She was there in 10 minutes. What happened? She asked, sitting down across from me. I told her about the call, about Allison's threat. Ellen's face darkened. Margaret, that sounds like she's planning something. I know. But what? I don't know. But you need to be careful. People like that, when they're cornered, they get desperate. She was right. I knew she was right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Allison's words. Not for long. The next morning, the attorney called back. We have a problem, he said. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Your daughter-in-law filed a counter-motion. She's claiming you're experiencing cognitive decline and that the protective order was filed under duress. Duress? I filed it myself. I know. But she's saying you were manipulated by me. That I convinced you there was a problem when there wasn't one. That's insane. It's also strategic. If she can make you look incompetent, it undermines everything we've done. Can she do that? She can try. She's requesting a competency hearing, where a judge evaluates whether you're capable of making legal decisions. I felt sick. When 2 weeks, maybe 3, what do I need to do? Show up. Be calm. Be clear. Don't let them rattle you. And we'll present all the evidence we have. The forged signature, the email, the voicemail, everything. Will it be enough? He paused. It should be. But judges are unpredictable in these situations. Family dynamics complicate things. When I hung up, I felt like the walls were closing in. They weren't backing down. They were doubling down. And I was terrified. That afternoon, I went to the bank, asked to speak to the manager again. Mrs. Hawley, he said, looking surprised. What can I do for you? I need to make sure my accounts are protected. I need to know no one can access them without my permission. He nodded, pulled up my information. Everything looks secure, he said. But I can add an extra layer of verification if you'd like. Any withdrawal over a certain amount would require in-person approval with ID. Do it. He typed for a moment. Done? Is there anything else? Has anyone tried to access my accounts recently? Besides me? He checked, frowned. There was a login attempt 3 days ago, from an unrecognized device. It was flagged and blocked automatically. My blood ran cold. Where? He clicked through screens. The IP address traces back to ... let me see. A location about 15 miles from here? 15 miles. That was where Derek and Allison lived. Can you print that for me? I asked. Of course. He handed me the printout. I folded it carefully and put it in my purse. One more piece of proof, one more nail. When I got back to Carol's, there was a voicemail from Derek. I almost deleted it. But something made me listen. Mom. His voice was quiet, defeated. I don't know how to fix this. She's not listening to me. She thinks if we push hard enough, you'll back down. But I know you won't. I know you. A pause. I'm sorry. For all of it. I just ... I didn't know how to stop it once it started. The voicemail ended. I saved it, backed it up, sent it to the attorney. Because apologies didn't matter anymore. Only evidence did. That night, Ellen came over with dinner. We ate in silence. You doing okay? She finally asked. No, I said honestly. But I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. I looked at her. Do I? Because it feels like I'm fighting for the right to exist. In my own house. With my own name. At my own age. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. Then keep fighting, she said. Because you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for every woman who's ever been told she's too old to matter. I nodded, felt tears prick my eyes. But I didn't cry. Because crying wouldn't stop Allison. Evidence would. And the question burning in my chest wasn't whether they'd show up to the hearing. It was what lies they'd bring with them. The hearing was in a small administrative room at the county courthouse. No jury, no gallery. Just a table, a court reporter, and a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I wore my best dress, the navy one I'd bought for my husband's funeral. Ellen sat behind me. The attorney sat beside me. Across the table sat Derek and Allison, and their lawyer. Derek wouldn't look at me. Allison stared straight ahead, her jaw tight. The judge reviewed the paperwork for what felt like an hour. Then she looked up. "Mrs. Helly," she said, "you've filed a protective order on your property. Your daughter-in-law has filed a counter motion claiming you lack the capacity to make that decision. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you dispute that claim?" "I do." The judge turned to Allison's attorney. "You may present your case." He stood, opened a folder. "Your Honor, Mrs. Holley is 64 years old. She lives alone. She's been exhibiting signs of confusion and memory loss over the past several months. Her family became concerned and attempted to help her organize her affairs. Instead of accepting their help, she became paranoid and accused them of theft." Paranoid. I felt my hands clench under the table. "We have documentation," he continued, "showing missed appointments, unpaid bills, and erratic behavior. Her son and daughter-in-law were acting in her best interest when they attempted to secure her property." He slid papers across the table to the judge. She reviewed them, frowned. "These are medical records?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor," from Mrs. Hale's primary care physician, noting concerns about memory. My attorney stood. "Your Honor, may I see those?" The judge handed them over. He scanned them quickly. His face changed. "Your Honor," he said carefully, "these records are from a wellness visit 6 months ago. The notation about memory concerns is a standard screening question." Mrs. Holley answered honestly that she occasionally forgets where she puts her keys. "That's not evidence of cognitive decline." The judge looked at Allison's attorney. "Is that accurate?" He shifted. "It's part of a pattern." "A pattern of what?" My attorney interrupted. "Being human. Your Honor, every person in this room has forgotten where they put their keys." A flicker of something crossed the judge's face. Not quite a smile, but close. "Counselor," she said to Allison's attorney, "do you have anything more substantial?" "We have witness testimony, Your Honor, from family members who've observed her confusion firsthand." "Call your witness." Allison stood. She walked to the front of the room, placed her hand on a Bible, swore to tell the truth. Then she lied. "Margaret has been struggling for months," she said, her voice soft, concerned. "She forgets conversations. She repeats herself. She gets confused about dates and times. We've been trying to help her, but she refuses to accept that she needs it." The judge made notes. "Can you give specific examples?" "She accused us of stealing from her. She claimed we forged documents. She involved lawyers and the county office over a simple misunderstanding about paperwork." "What paperwork?" Allison hesitated. "Just for a second. We were helping her organize her property records. She misunderstood and thought we were trying to take her house." "Were you?" "Of course not. We were trying to make sure everything was in order, for her protection." The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Holley, would you like to respond?" My attorney stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to present our evidence now." "Proceed." He placed documents on the table, one by one. "This is a notarized property transfer request submitted to the county office 3 weeks ago. It includes a power of attorney with Mrs. Hale's signature that doesn't match the one on file." The judge picked it up, studied it. "This is an email from Mrs. Allison Holley to the notary office, requesting an expedited transfer because the owner is elderly and difficult to work with." Allison's face went pale. "This is a voicemail from Mrs. Hale's son, Derek, dated 2 months ago, stating that he and his wife were planning to handle everything regarding her affairs." Derek looked down. "And this," my attorney said, his voice sharp now, "is a record of an attempted login to Mrs. Hale's bank accounts from an IP address registered to the defendant's home?" The room went silent. The judge looked at Allison. Did you attempt to access Mrs. Hale's bank accounts? I was just checking to make sure everything was okay. Without her permission? Allison didn't answer. I don't want you to miss what happens next. Subscribe so you can find stories like this again. The judge set the papers down. Mrs. Hawley, I'd like to ask you a few questions directly. Yes, Your Honor. What is today's date? November 14th. Who is the current president? I answered. Correctly. Can you tell me what you had for breakfast this morning? Oatmeal. With blueberries. And coffee. She nodded. Made more notes. Mrs. Hale, do you believe you're capable of managing your own affairs? Yes, Your Honor. I've been managing them for 40 years. And do you believe your son and daughter-in-law were acting in your best interest? I looked at Derek. At Allison. No, Your Honor. I believe they were acting in their own. The judge closed her folder. I'm going to rule on this today, she said. The protective order stands. There is no evidence of cognitive decline that would justify removing Mrs. Hale's autonomy. Furthermore, the evidence presented suggests a clear attempt to bypass her consent in matters of property and finance. Allison stood. Your Honor, I'm not finished. The judge's voice was ice. I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation into potential elder financial abuse. If charges are filed, you'll be notified. Allison sank back into her chair. This hearing is concluded. The gavel came down. I sat there, unable to move, unable to breathe. Ellen's hand landed on my shoulder. You did it, she whispered. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Outside the courthouse, Derek caught up to me. Mom, I turned. Don't. Please. I need you to understand. I understand perfectly. Derek, you needed money. And you thought I was too old and too confused to notice you taking it. His face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Then what was it supposed to be like? He didn't answer. Just stood there, looking small and broken. Goodbye, Derek, I said, and I walked away. That night, Ellen and I sat on Carol's porch with tea. What happens now? She asked. Now. I go home. I change the locks. I live my life. And Derek, I looked out at the street. At the house 2 doors down where I used to live, that's up to him, I said. And the DA, the truth was, I didn't know what would happen. If charges would be filed. If Derek would lose everything the way he tried to make me lose everything. But I knew one thing. I wasn't confused. I wasn't paranoid. And I wasn't too old to fight for what was mine. It took 3 days to get the final paperwork. The county issued a formal notice that the property transfer attempt was void. The protective order was permanent unless I chose to lift it. And the district attorney's office opened an official investigation. I received a copy of everything by certified mail. I held the envelope for a long time before opening it. Like, if I didn't look inside, I could pretend none of this had happened. But it did happen. And I needed to face it. The letter from the DA was brief, professional. They were reviewing the evidence. They'd be in touch if they needed testimony. In the meantime, my son and daughter-in-law had been issued a formal warning. Any further attempts to access my property, finances, or personal information would result in criminal charges. I folded the letter carefully, put it in a drawer, then I called the locksmith. He came that afternoon, changed every lock on the house, front door, back door, garage, even the side gate latch. You want the same key for everything? He asked. No, I said. Different keys. Just in case. He looked at me like he understood. Like he'd done this before for other women in other houses, with other sons. When he finished, he handed me 3 keys on a new ring. You're all set, ma'am, he said. No one's getting in unless you let them. I paid him, locked the door behind him, and stood in my living room for the first time in weeks. It felt different. Quieter. I walked through each room slowly. The kitchen, the bedroom, the hallway where my lockbox used to sit. Everything was still there. my photos, my furniture, my life. But it didn't feel like mine yet. Not completely. I found the Ring camera in a drawer. Allison had unplugged it and hidden it. I plugged it back in, mounted it on the front door, adjusted the angle until I could see the whole porch. Then I opened the app on my phone, watched the live feed. There I was, standing in my own doorway, in control. That night, Derek sent a text. "Mom, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know I never wanted it to go this far. I made mistakes. I'm sorry." I read it twice. Then I wrote back, "Sorry isn't enough. What you did was theft. And you knew it while you were doing it." He didn't respond. An hour later, another text came through. "The DA wants us to meet with them next week. Allison's lawyer says we might be able to settle this without charges if you agree. Will you consider it?" I stared at the message, at the word settle, like this was a business transaction, like I was supposed to make it easier for them. I wrote back, "No." One word. That was all he deserved. The next morning, I went to the pharmacy, clocked in, stocked shelves like nothing had happened. But my coworker, Linda, noticed. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Getting there," I said. "That family stuff you mentioned? Did it work out? I thought about the hearing, the locksmith, the new keys in my purse. It's working out," I said. She nodded. "Didn't push." That afternoon, Ellen came by with groceries. "You don't have to keep checking on me," I said. "I know, but I'm going to anyway." We unpacked the bags together, put things in the fridge, made coffee. "Have you heard from Derek?" she asked. He asked if I'd settle, drop everything, let them off easy. "What did you say?" "No," she smiled. "Good." We sat on the porch as the sun went down, watched the neighborhood settle into evening. "You know what the worst part is?" I said after a while. "What?" "I keep thinking about all the times I trusted them. All the times I let Allison help with paperwork. All the times Derek said he'd handle something and I just, believed him." "That's not the worst part," Ellen said. "That's the human part." I looked at her. "You're not naive for trusting your family," she continued. "They're wrong for abusing that trust. Don't let them make you feel stupid for being kind." I nodded, felt something loosen in my chest. "Thank you," I whispered. "Anytime." 2 weeks later, I got another letter from the DA. They were moving forward with charges. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, attempted fraud, forgery. Derek and Allison would face a judge. Not the civil kind, the criminal kind. I didn't feel happy about it, but I didn't feel guilty either. I felt clear. That night, I sat in my reading chair, the one Allison had moved on, opened a book I'd been meaning to read for months. My phone buzzed. Another text from Derek. "Mom, please, you're destroying our lives." I looked at it for a long time. Then I deleted it, blocked the number, and went back to my book. Because my life wasn't about his anymore. It was about mine, and I'd earned the right to live it on my terms. Not theirs, not anyone's. I was 64 years old. I worked full-time. I paid my bills. I owned my home. And I wasn't confused. I was awake. The truth is, justice isn't always loud. It's not always satisfying. Sometimes it's just the quiet act of refusing to disappear, of changing your locks, of keeping the receipts, of saying no when people expect you to say yes. They wanted me to be easy, forgettable, too old to fight back. But I fought back anyway, and I won. Not because I was smarter, not because I was stronger, but because I refused to let my age be used as a weapon against me. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever lived through something like this. Because you're not alone, and neither am I. We're the ones who kept the receipts. We're the ones who didn't stay quiet. And we're the ones who proved that being older doesn't mean being powerless. It just means we've had more time to learn how to fight.